The USS Horizon cut through the darkness of space, its sleek hull gleaming under the distant starlight. Commander Elena Ruiz stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind her back, her gaze fixed on the vast display that showed their approach vector to the Sol system. After 6 months in deep space, she was eager to report on the successful diplomatic mission to the outer colonies. "Navigation report," she said, turning to Navigator Marcus Lee. Lee, a thin man with sharp features and a perpetual half-smile, looked up from his console. "We're on course, Commander. ETA to Earth orbit is approximately 18 hours. The rest of the fleet is maintaining formation." Ruiz nodded, satisfied. Under her command, the survey fleet had visited a dozen human settlements across 3 star systems, strengthening ties between Earth and its far-flung children. The past 5 decades since first contact with the Artaxians, a peaceful, if technologically primitive species, had ushered in what many called the Pax Interstellar. Earth had become a bustling hub of diplomacy, its gleaming towers and orbital platforms hosting representatives from a dozen minor alien civilizations. "Communication status?" she asked, turning to Communications Officer David Ortiz. Ortiz, his dark eyes focused on his display, responded promptly. "All clear, Commander. Regular updates from Earth Command confirm smooth operations. Admiral Carter sends her regards and looks forward to your full report." Ruiz smiled. Admiral Naomi Carter had been her mentor for years, guiding her from a junior officer to the commander of one of Earth's premier diplomatic vessels. The Horizon wasn't the largest ship in the fleet. That honor belonged to Carter's flagship, the Artemis, but it was perhaps the most respected, having facilitated first contact with 3 separate species. "Engineering status?" Ruiz asked, completing her routine check. Engineer Priyakana's voice came through the comm system. "All systems nominal, Commander. Warp drive functioning at 98% efficiency. We could push it higher, but I'd prefer to save the strain on the coils." "Agreed," Ruiz said. "No need to rush. We've been away from home long enough that another few hours won't make a difference." The bridge crew worked in comfortable silence. Most had served together for years, their routines as synchronized as the ship's automated systems. In 2187, 50 years after humanity's first hesitant steps into interstellar society, the deep space corridors connecting Earth to its dozens of colonies were well-traveled and secure. Ruiz was about to retire to her quarters when Navigator Lee's console emitted a sharp alert. "Commander," Lee said, his voice suddenly tense, "I'm detecting anomalous energy signatures near Earth." Ruiz frowned, returning to the central display. "Define anomalous." "Massive subspace distortions," Lee said, his fingers flying over his controls. "Similar to warp signatures, but different, more powerful. And there are many of them." Before Ruiz could respond, Ortiz called out, "Commander, Priority 1 transmission from Earth Command." "On screen," Ruiz ordered. The main display flickered, and Admiral Carter's face appeared. Even through the slight distortion of faster-than-light communication, Ruiz could see that something was terribly wrong. Carter's face was ashen, a streak of blood running from her temple. "This is Admiral Carter to all Earth vessels," she said, her voice strained. "We are under attack. Repeat, Earth is under attack by unknown alien vessels. Major population centers have been hit. New York, Shanghai, Lagos. Gone. 3 billion casualties in the first wave alone." The bridge fell silent, the only sound the soft beeping of the alert systems. "This is not a drill," Carter continued. "All vessels are ordered to return to Sol system immediately. Prepare for combat operations. Carter out." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Ruiz was the first to recover. "Battle stations," she ordered, her voice steady despite the shock coursing through her. "Maximum warp to Earth. Alert the fleet. We're going home." As the horizon surged forward, tearing through the fabric of spacetime, Ruiz gripped the railing of her command station. This was not a diplomatic incident. This was not a misunderstanding. This was genocide. Someone had struck Earth first, and they would pay. The horizon emerged from warp on the outskirts of the Sol system, and immediately Ruiz knew that Admiral Carter's transmission had not conveyed the full horror of what had happened. The orbital defense platforms around Earth were in ruins. Debris fields, where mighty stations had once stood. The Artemis, Admiral Carter's flagship, listed badly, venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. "Status of Earth?" Ruiz demanded. Lee worked his sensors. Heavy bombardment of major cities on all continents. Radiation signatures consistent with antimatter weapons. I'm detecting massive civilian casualties and... Commander, the attackers are still here. Ruiz looked at the tactical display. Dozens of alien vessels, each dwarfing the horizon, moved in precise formation around Earth. Their design was unlike anything in human records. Massive, angular ships with what appeared to be biological components integrated into their hulls. "Open a channel to the Artemis," Ruiz ordered. After a moment, Admiral Carter appeared on screen again. She was now in an emergency suit, the bridge around her in chaos. "Ruiz," Carter said, her voice ragged. "Thank God you're here. We're getting slaughtered." "What happened?" Ruiz asked. "Who are they?" "They call themselves the Kaleri Confederacy," Carter said. "No warning, no demands. They just appeared and opened fire on our cities. We've lost over 3 billion civilians in the first hour alone." Ruiz felt her blood run cold. "Orders?" "Join the counteroffensive," Carter said. "We're trying to buy time for civilian evacuations. Captain Saito is coordinating from what's left of Luna Base." The transmission dissolved into static as another explosion rocked the Artemis. "Move us into position with Captain Saito's battle group," Ruiz ordered. "Weapons hot." The horizon accelerated toward Earth, joining a ragged formation of human vessels attempting to engage one of the massive Kaleri ships. As they approached, Ruiz saw Captain Saito's cruiser, the Dauntless, accelerate suddenly toward the alien vessel. "What is he doing?" Ortiz asked. Ruiz watched in horror and admiration as the Dauntless collided with the Kaleri ship. The human vessel's warp core detonated on impact, tearing a massive hole in the alien craft. "He took one with him," Ruiz said quietly. "Signal the fleet. Target the wounded vessel. All weapons." But even as the human ships concentrated their fire, more Kaleri vessels moved into position. The battle was hopelessly one-sided. For every alien ship damaged, 3 human vessels were destroyed. "Commander," Lee said, his voice tight, "Admiral Elliott is ordering a general retreat. We can't hold them." Ruiz stared at the burning Earth, at the ruins of humanity's homeworld. Every instinct screamed at her to stay and fight. But she knew it would be suicide. "Plot a course to Rendezvous Point Omega," she said, her voice hollow. "Signal the remaining ships to follow us." As the horizon turned away from Earth, Ruiz watched the tactical display. One by one, the human ships that could still maneuver disengaged and fled. Those 2 damaged to escape continued fighting until they were destroyed. "They will pay for this," Ruiz vowed, her hands clenched into fists. "Whatever it takes, they will pay." 6 months later, Commander Ruiz stood in what remained of the Aegis Space Station's command center. Once the pride of Earth's orbital infrastructure, Aegis was now a patchwork of repairs and jury-rigged systems. But it served its purpose as the headquarters for what remained of Earth's leadership. Admiral Carter, her face now bearing a permanent scar from the initial attack, stood beside a holographic display of the Sol system. Admiral Marcus Elliott of the Colonial Marines paced nearby, his normally immaculate uniform now worn and faded. "The Kaleri have withdrawn to their core systems," Carter reported. "Our intelligence suggests they're consolidating their gains and preparing for further attacks on our outlying colonies." "Let them come," Elliott said grimly. We'll be ready this time. Ruiz studied the display. After the initial devastating attack, the Kaleri had occupied Earth for 3 months, systematically destroying infrastructure and hunting survivors. Their withdrawal had been as sudden as their arrival, leaving a wounded planet struggling to recover. "What do we know about them?" Ruiz asked. Carter activated a different display, showing the distinctive Kaleri vessels. They're an old species, technologically advanced but extremely xenophobic. Intelligence suggests they've exterminated other civilizations before. They consider all non-Kaleri life to be impure and worthy only of eradication. "And now they've turned their attention to us," Elliot said. "Not just their attention," Ruiz said quietly. "Their mistake." Carter nodded. "Which brings us to Operation Sunbreaker. Commander Ruiz, given your record and the respect you command throughout the fleet, we want you to lead it." Ruiz looked at the operational details appearing on the display. It was audacious, perhaps even desperate. But after witnessing Earth's devastation, desperate measures were all they had left. "We reverse-engineered their cloaking technology from debris," Carter explained. "We've also adapted their weapon systems for our ships. The new Eternity-class vessels combine our technology with theirs. They'll never see us coming." "And the nanite program?" Ruiz asked. Carter's expression hardened. "Dr. Ford will brief you on that personally. It's effective." Ruiz knew what that meant. In the aftermath of the attack, ethical considerations had been pushed aside. Survival was all that mattered now. "What about public support?" she asked. Elliot laughed bitterly. "The public? Commander, the survivors are unified in one sentiment: never again. They'll support whatever it takes to ensure the Kaleri are eliminated as a threat." Ruiz had seen it herself. The refugee camps, the ruined cities, the mass graves, the vacant stares of children who had watched their worlds end. The grief had quickly turned to rage, a cold fury that united what remained of humanity. "Very well," she said. "I accept command of Operation Sunbreaker, but I want to review all aspects of the plan, especially Dr. Ford's work." Carter nodded. "Understood. You leave in 3 days. The Eternity will be ready." As Ruiz left the command center, she passed through corridors filled with the grim-faced survivors, who now staffed Aegis. Many were civilians pressed into service after the attack, their previous lives as accountants, teachers, or engineers now irrelevant in a world focused solely on survival and revenge. In her temporary quarters, Ruiz reviewed the personnel files for the operation. Dr. Amelia Ford's file was particularly troubling. Before the attack, she had been one of Earth's premier pediatricians, renowned for her work developing nanite therapies for childhood diseases. Now, she was the architect of humanity's most terrifying weapon. Ruiz requested a meeting, and hours later, found herself in Ford's laboratory. The doctor was a small woman, her once kind face now set in permanent lines of exhaustion and determination. "Commander," Ford greeted her, not looking up from her work. "I assume you're here about the Prometheus protocol." "I need to understand exactly what it does," Ruiz said. Ford finally looked up, her eyes hollow. "It kills them, all of them. The nanites target specific genetic markers present in all Kaleri. Once deployed, they replicate using available organic matter and spread throughout an ecosystem. Within hours, every Kaleri in the affected area will be dead." Ruiz felt a chill. "And the ecological impact?" "Total collapse," Ford said bluntly. "The nanites don't discriminate between Kaleri and the environments they've adapted to. Their planets will become sterile, permanently." Ruiz was silent for a moment. "You were a healer." "I still am," Ford said sharply. "I am healing humanity by ensuring its survival. 3 billion people. Commander. 3 billion. Including my entire family." Her voice broke slightly. "My daughter was 7 years old." Ruiz nodded slowly. "I understand, Doctor. Thank you for your candor." As she left the laboratory, Ruiz wrestled with her conscience. Was this truly necessary? Was there another way? But the memory of Earth's burning cities, of Captain Saito's sacrifice, hardened her resolve. The Kaleri had made their choice. Now humanity would make its own. While the military prepared for Operation Sunbreaker, the civilian population was undergoing its own transformation. General Lucian Stone, a career military officer known for his ruthless efficiency, had been tasked with creating the Human Retaliation Corps, a force drawn from the survivors of the attack. Ruiz observed one of their training sessions from an overlooking platform. Below, hundreds of civilians, former teachers, doctors, engineers, artists, ran through combat drills. Their faces were set with a determination that bordered on fanaticism. "Impressive, isn't it?" General Stone said, joining her at the railing. 6 months ago, that woman there was a concert pianist. Now she's one of our best snipers. Ruiz watched as the woman in question executed a perfect sequence of shots, her face expressionless. "Is this what we've become?" Stone regarded her coolly. "This is what they made us. Commander, the Kaleri thought they could break us. Instead, they forged us into something stronger, something that will haunt their nightmares." "If they're capable of fear," Ruiz said. "Oh, they are," Stone assured her. "Our intelligence has confirmed that. They feel fear, pain, grief, all the emotions they inflicted on us, and soon they'll feel them too." Ruiz nodded, turning away from the sight of civilians transformed into weapons. "Carry on, General. I have a fleet to prepare." As Ruiz immersed herself in preparations for Operation Sunbreaker, across the gulf of space, the architects of Earth's destruction were celebrating their victory. Supreme Commander Vishara of the Kaleri Confederacy stood before the High Council, his scaled skin gleaming with ceremonial oils that signified triumph. The circular chamber, built from the bones of extinct species, echoed with the rhythmic clicking of approval from the assembled counselors. "The human infestation has been cleansed from their primary world," Vishara announced. "Their defensive capabilities were insufficient, as predicted. While some escaped to their colony worlds, they pose no significant threat. Our purification fleets stand ready to complete the extermination." From a shadowed alcove, Siran watched the proceedings with carefully concealed dismay. As the Confederacy's leading xenobiologist, he had been consulted on the human campaign, his expertise used to identify weaknesses in their physiology. But he had argued for study rather than extermination, a position that had earned him suspicion from the military caste. "What of the reports of human survivors adapting our technology?" one counselor asked. Vishara dismissed the concern with a gesture. "Primitive attempts by a dying species. Their understanding of our systems is rudimentary at best. By the time they could pose any threat, our cleansing will be complete." Siran stepped forward, knowing the risk, but unable to remain silent. "Supreme Commander, with respect, I must caution against underestimating these humans. Our initial studies indicate remarkable adaptability and resilience. Furthermore, their social structures emphasize cooperation in ways that differ significantly from our hierarchical model." The chamber fell silent, all eyes turning to the scientist. Vishara's upper lip curled back, revealing serrated teeth. "Your concerns are noted. Scientist Ziran," he said coldly. "Perhaps you would prefer to conduct your studies on living specimens. We have captured several for interrogation." Ziran lowered his gaze in the proper gesture of submission. "I serve the Confederacy, Supreme Commander. My only desire is to ensure our victory is complete." "Then you will be pleased to know," Vishara said, "that the next phase of cleansing begins soon. The human colonies will join their homeworld in oblivion." As the council session ended, Siran retreated to his laboratory. There, secured in a containment field, a wounded human female watched him with wary eyes. She had been captured during the Earth assault, one of the few taken alive for study. "Your leaders are fools," she said in halting Kaleri. a language she had begun to learn during her captivity. "You don't understand what you've done." Ziran approached the field, careful to maintain a safe distance. "And what have we done, human?" "You've awakened something terrible," she said. "Humans. We can be peaceful. We want to be. But when threatened, when cornered," she closed her eyes. "You should have killed us all at once. Because now, we're coming for you. And we won't stop until every one of you is dead." Ziran felt a chill that had nothing to do with the laboratory's temperature. He had studied enough species to recognize truth when he heard it. And in that moment, he began to wonder if the Confederacy had made a grave mistake. The day of Operation Sunbreaker dawned. Though in the darkness of space, dawn was merely a concept. Commander Ruiz, now captain of the newly christened Eternity, stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship. Around her, a fleet of over 200 vessels, some military, others converted civilian ships, waited in formation. "Status report," Ruiz ordered. "All ships report ready, Captain," Ortiz responded. "Cloaking systems engaged and functioning perfectly. The Kaliri have no idea we're here." The fleet had positioned itself near the Kaliri Transit Nexus, a critical junction in their interstellar travel network. Intelligence gathered from captured Kaliri technology had revealed this weakness in their infrastructure, a choke point through which much of their military traffic passed. "And our bait?" Ruiz asked. "In position," Lee confirmed. "The convoy appears to be exactly what we want them to see. Refugee ships attempting to flee from one of our outer colonies." The plan was elegant in its brutality. A small fleet of automated ships, disguised as civilian transports, would draw Kaliri pursuers into the Nexus. Once the enemy committed their forces, the hidden human fleet would spring the trap. "Very well," Ruiz said. "Signal Admiral Carter. Operation Sunbreaker is go." Hours passed as the decoy convoy moved through space, broadcasting distress signals and appearing to limp along at suboptimal speeds. Just as predicted, Kaliri patrol vessels detected them and moved to intercept. "They've taken the bait," Lee reported. "Kaliri response force is moving into the Nexus. Current count, 15 capital ships, 23 cruisers, and multiple support vessels." Ruiz nodded. "More than we expected. Good. Let them commit fully." The bridge was silent as they watched the Kaliri forces converge on the decoy convoy. When the first alien vessel fired upon the lead refugee ship, Ruiz felt a grim satisfaction. Their enemy's cruelty would be their undoing. "Now," she ordered. Throughout the Nexus, the disguised human ships, those that appeared to be simple cargo vessels or abandoned hulks, suddenly activated. Each contained a warp core rigged to detonate, along with weapons salvaged from Earth's ruins. In an instant, the calm of space erupted into chaos as explosions blossomed across the Kaliri formation. "Disengage cloaking systems," Ruiz commanded. "All ships, open fire." The Eternity and its sister ships shimmered into visibility, their weapons already targeting the surprised Kaliri vessels. The ambush was perfectly executed, catching the enemy in a crossfire with nowhere to retreat. "Status of the Kaliri fleet?" Ruiz asked, as the Eternity shuddered under return fire. "Disorganized," Lee reported. "They're attempting to regroup, but our positioning is preventing effective coordination. We've already destroyed 7 capital ships and numerous smaller vessels." Ruiz nodded. "Signal General Stone. Begin Phase 2. While the space battle raged, dropships launched from hidden positions, carrying General Stone's human retaliation core toward Kaliri Prime's moon bases. These facilities house the control systems for the planet's defense grid, a necessary first step before the final phase could begin. The battle extended over 3 days, a relentless grind of attrition. The human fleet, fueled by vengeance and fighting with nothing left to lose, pressed their advantage mercilessly. The Kaliri, for all their technological superiority, had never faced an enemy willing to sacrifice everything to ensure their destruction. By the third day, Ruiz stood on a bridge littered with damage reports and casualty lists. The Eternity had taken heavy fire, one entire deck exposed to vacuum. But the Kaliri had suffered far worse. Final count, Lee reported, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. 912 Kaliri vessels destroyed or disabled. Our losses stand at 120 ships, approximately 8,500 crew. The cost had been high, but the Kaliri transit nexus was now under human control, cutting off their homeworld from reinforcements. Signal from General Stone, Ortiz announced. Ground forces have secured the lunar control centers. Kaliri Prime's defense grid is compromised. Ruiz took a deep breath. The moment of decision had arrived. Open a channel to Dr. Ford. Amelia Ford's face appeared on the display, her expression resolute. Captain Ruiz, I take it we're ready for Prometheus. The defense grid is down, Ruiz confirmed. Your delivery system has a clear path. Ford nodded. I'm activating the nanite swarm now. Deployment in 5 minutes. Ruiz ended the transmission and opened a channel to what remained of the Kaliri leadership on their homeworld. A haggard alien face appeared. Not Supreme Commander Vishara, but some lesser official. This is Captain Elena Ruiz of the Earth Fleet, she said. Where is your commander? Dead, the Kaliri responded. By your hand. I am Council Delegate Morzak. I am authorized to discuss terms of surrender. Ruiz felt a flicker of surprise, quickly suppressed. There will be no terms. Delegate, no negotiation. Your species struck Earth without warning or mercy. You killed 3 billion innocent civilians. And now, you will understand the consequence of that action. She nodded to Ortiz, who activated another channel. President Lina Moreno, speaking from a secure bunker on Mars, addressed the Kaliri leadership. I speak for what remains of humanity, Moreno said, her voice steady. Your unprovoked attack on our homeworld revealed to us a terrible truth. That in this universe, mercy is a luxury we can no longer afford. You sought to exterminate us, believing us weak. Instead, you awakened our true nature. On another screen, Ruiz watched as Dr. Ford's delivery system, a swarm of automated drones, entered Kaliri Prime's atmosphere. The nanites they carried were already activating, preparing to spread across the planet's surface. We take no pleasure in what comes next, President Moreno continued. But we will endure the burden of this action to ensure that never again will humanity face extinction at the hands of another species. The Kaliri delegate's face contorted in what might have been fear or rage. What have you done? Exactly what you taught us to do, Ruiz answered, terminating the connection. On the monitor, showing Kaliri Prime, the first signs of the nanite swarm's work became visible. A spreading gray pattern across the planet's verdant surface. Within an hour, all life on Kaliri Prime would be eradicated. The complex ecosystem reduced to its component molecules, food for the ravenous nanites programmed to target Kaliri DNA. Ruiz watched in silence, wondering what line they had just crossed, and whether humanity could ever step back. The surrender of the remaining Kaliri forces came quickly after the destruction of their homeworld. But Captain Ruiz, now Fleet Admiral Ruiz by field promotion, ordered her ships to show no mercy. Any Kaliri military vessel encountered was destroyed, regardless of attempts to surrender. They are too dangerous to be allowed to survive, she told her officers during a strategy session aboard the Eternity. We cannot risk even a handful escaping to rebuild their civilization. Not everyone agreed with this approach. A delegation led by Jiran, the Kaliri scientist who had defected during the final battle, requested an audience with Ruiz, escorted by armed guards. Jiran entered her ready room, his once vibrant scales now dull with stress and grief. Admiral, he began, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into flat, emotionless English. I come to plead for the lives of the non-combatants, the scientists, the artists, The children who had no part in the decision to attack Earth. Ruiz studied him coldly. There were children on Earth too. Scientist Ziran. 3 billion innocent lives. Did your Supreme Commander consider their fate? No, Ziran admitted. And that was our greatest failure. But I ask you, will humanity repeat our mistake? Will you become what you despised? The question struck uncomfortably close to doubts Ruiz had been suppressing. She had seen the transformation of her own species from peaceful explorers to merciless avengers. She had authorized the use of a weapon that rendered an entire planet lifeless. Where did justice end and genocide begin? Your concerns will be noted, she said finally. The non-military Kaleri will be contained in designated systems under human supervision. No further action will be taken against them pending review by Earth's provisional government. It wasn't mercy, not really. But it was a step back from the abyss. After Ziran left, Ruiz received a transmission from Admiral Carter. The older woman looked exhausted but satisfied. The President has announced the formation of a provisional government, Carter reported. They want you to bring the Eternity back to Earth for a victory ceremony. Ruiz frowned. Victory, is that what we're calling it? Carter's expression softened slightly. Elena, I know you're struggling with what we've done. So am I. But remember what was at stake. Remember what they did to us first. I remember, Ruiz said quietly. I'll never forget. But Admiral, I think I need to see it again, to remind myself of the cost. Upon returning to Earth, Ruiz requested a shuttle to the surface, alone. She walked through the ruins of what had once been New York City. The gleaming towers, the bustling streets, the parks and museums and theaters, all gone, replaced by a vast crater that glowed faintly with residual radiation. Similar scenes existed across the planet. Shanghai, Lagos, London, Moscow, all reduced to ash and memory. 3 billion dead, tens of billions displaced, their lives shattered beyond repair. As she stood at the edge of the crater, Ruiz felt the weight of both grief and responsibility. The Kaleri had struck first, an unprovoked act of genocide that demanded response. But in that response, had humanity lost something essential? Had they become something new? Something harder and colder than what they had been? Perhaps it didn't matter. In a universe where such violence was possible, perhaps innocence was a luxury none could afford. 2 years later, Fleet Admiral Elena Ruiz stood before the newly established United Coalition Council. Earth had been partially rebuilt, though vast areas remained uninhabitable. Under martial law, the survivors had created a new society, one focused primarily on defense and expansion. The Human Retaliation Corps has successfully transitioned into the Stellar Defense Force, Ruiz reported. Our borders are secure, and the remaining Kaleri populations have been contained as specified in the Treaty of Mars. President Moreno, re-elected to lead the coalition, nodded in approval. And the outer colonies? Fully integrated into our defense network, Ruiz confirmed. No species within 50 light-years poses a credible threat to human interests. The unspoken reality hung in the air. No species would dare, not after witnessing the fate of the Kaleri. Humanity's response to aggression had sent a clear message throughout the explored galaxy. Attack us at your peril. After the council session, Ruiz met privately with Admiral Carter, now serving as head of the Coalition's Intelligence Division. We've intercepted some interesting communications, Carter said, activating a secure display. Several of the more advanced civilizations have formed a non-aggression pact, specifically aimed at avoiding conflict with us. Ruiz studied the data. They fear us. With good reason, Carter replied. The species that attacked Earth no longer exists as a significant power. That makes an impression. Is fear enough? Ruiz asked. Or will they eventually unite against us, seeing us as the greater threat? Carter shrugged. Perhaps, but by then, we'll be ready for them too. Ruiz wasn't so certain. The path humanity had chosen, the path she had helped forge, led to a future of perpetual vigilance, of power maintained through the threat of overwhelming force. It was not the future she had once imagined as a young officer aboard the Horizon, but it was the future they had now. "They struck first," she said, as much to herself as to Carter. "We ensured they would never strike again." "And that's how it must be," Carter agreed, "for humanity to survive." As Ruiz left the council chambers, she passed a group of children playing in a reconstructed park. They were enacting some game of war, mimicking the battles they had heard about from adults. One child pretended to be a Kaleri invader, while the others represented human defenders. "You can't win," one child shouted. "We're humans, and humans always win." Ruiz paused, watching them. These children had been born after the attack, into a world already shaped by humanity's response. They knew only the martial society that had emerged from the ashes, not the peaceful civilization that had preceded it. Was this the legacy of Operation Sunbreaker? A generation raised on stories of vengeance and victory, seeing the galaxy as a battlefield rather than a frontier? Ruiz couldn't help but wonder if somewhere, on a distant world, alien children were being taught to fear the humans who had destroyed an entire species in retaliation for a single attack. In the distance, patrol ships maintained their vigilant orbit around Earth, their weapon systems constantly updated, their crews trained to respond with overwhelming force to any perceived threat. The Human Retaliation Corps, now the backbone of the coalition military, conducted regular exercises to maintain readiness for a war that might never come, or might arrive when least expected. And beyond the borders of human space, other civilizations watched and waited, measuring their actions carefully against the knowledge of what humanity had done to those who had struck them first. On a remote station at the edge of human territory, Siran and a small group of Kaleri refugees worked alongside human scientists in a joint research project. It was a tentative beginning, a fragile attempt at reconciliation between the survivors of both species. Many humans opposed it, seeing any Kaleri as enemies deserving only extinction. Many Kaleri could not forgive the destruction of their homeworld and the near eradication of their species. But it existed nonetheless, a small flame of cooperation in a galaxy darkened by fear and suspicion. Whether it would grow into something meaningful or be extinguished by the next crisis remained to be seen. Fleet Admiral Ruiz requested regular updates on the project's progress, though she never visited in person. Perhaps she couldn't face the survivors of a civilization she had helped destroy, or perhaps she simply understood that her presence, as the architect of Operation Sunbreaker, would only hinder the fragile peace being built. From the observation deck of her flagship, now patrolling the borders of human space, Ruiz watched the stars. Somewhere out there, other civilizations were making their own calculations, weighing the benefits of contact against the risks of misunderstanding. And humanity waited, forever changed by the day aliens had struck Earth first, and by the response that had ensured they would never strike again. The legacy of that response would shape the future of both humanity and the galaxy for generations to come. Whether it would lead to lasting peace through deterrence or to new cycles of violence remained an open question, one that Ruiz, and all who had participated in humanity's terrible vengeance, would grapple with for the rest of their lives. They had survived. They had prevailed. But in doing so, they had crossed lines that could never be uncrossed, becoming something both more and less than what they had been before. In the cold equations of interstellar conflict, perhaps that transformation had been inevitable, the price of survival in a universe where first contact could mean extinction. As humanity spread across the stars, rebuilding and expanding with the grim determination of survivors, they carried with them both the trauma of Earth's devastation and the burden of their response. Whether they would find redemption or fall further into darkness was a story yet to be written, a choice that each generation would make anew as they looked up at the stars and remembered both what had been done to them and what they had done in return. They had been struck first. They had ensured it would never happen again. And in the silence between the stars, the universe waited to see what humanity would become next.